Okay. The philosophical question I'm going to be posing to you is, do rocks have value? Do rocks have instrumental value, or do rocks have intrinsic value, or is there some combo package of both that applies to rocks? Now, this could be true of other things, but I'm going to concentrate for a moment on rocks. I'm here at Joshua Tree, making one of my many trips to the Southland and back again. And this is a national monument. It has quite a proliferation of different rock formations. There are cacti, mesquite bushes, other flora which I'm going to attempt to identify at some point in time here. But that is my question. I'd like it to be a leading question at some point in time, something that we might be able to discuss together as a group in dialogue. We'll call it the Rock Dialogue. Now let me give you a quotation from a famous philosopher. So here's what the famous philosopher Holmes Wollstonee III has to say. To say that N is valuable means that N is able to be valued if and when human valuers, otherwise known by Holmes Wollstonee as HS, stands for human valuers, come along. But N has these properties whether or not humans arrive. So those rocks that you happen to be looking at right now, according to Holmes, have value. Faced, for example, with trilobite fossils, we conclude that the trilobites were potentially intrinsically valuable. By this account, there is no actual value ownership autonomous to the valued and valuable trees, canyons, trilobites, or in our case, rocks. There is a value ignition when humans arrive. Intrinsic value, in the realized sense, emerges relationally with the appearance of the subject generator. So the subject generator would be human beings, according to Holmes. So if we try to take this view that some things could have intrinsic value, that means that they would essentially be valuable without humans around or some kind of a valuing agent. Then we can say that these rocks, of course, have value. Now what you have to do is imagine that there are no human beings or other sentient creatures that are able to value the rock. But what Holmes Wollstonee seems to be saying here is that there is a sense in which, because of the fact that I and you, looking at rocks such as this, are able to discern the fact that they probably have some value even despite the fact that we weren't here, then it seems to suggest that when we come on the scene and actually value something, that there is a quote-unquote value ignition. We are in a position to be able to appreciate the intrinsic value of the rock, and were we not around, or anybody for that matter, the rock or rocks would still be of value somehow. Now you might say, or ask the question, what is the value of a rock if there is no human agent, no ignition, so to speak, between the rock and the individual entity that is able to perceive that rock? That's a very good question, and it's one, it seems to me, that should plague people in environmental ethics to some extent. So this is a bit of a thought experiment, and I hope that you will, to some extent, ponder it and perhaps consider what kinds of things actually have value and would have value if there were no value ignition. Again, this value ignition concept, this means that somehow there is a stimulus to our evaluation, aesthetically at the very least, and quite possibly morally. You might want to ask the question whether or not this lizard has some value. Now, we were talking about inanimate objects, non-sentient creatures, inorganic rocks, for example, just a few moments ago, but how about an organic entity like a lizard? This is a fairly typical desert lizard, and I probably am interrupting its casual stroll across an inorganic rock. But you know, when you tend to appreciate, as I am doing right now, the relationship between animals and their environments, you do get a sense that there probably is some value, even if I weren't here, to value it.